I want to ask you about something you talked about on live television. It was a very serious and painful issue. You were asked about the epidemic of sexual violence and rape in Pakistan. And you acknowledged the seriousness of the problem, and you talked about Pakistan's strict laws. You were also quoted as saying that the practice of women wearing veils, quote, is to stop temptation. Not every man has willpower, you said. If you keep increasing vulgarity, it will have consequences. This created, as you know, a bit of an uproar, and you were accused of rape victim blaming. How do you respond to that?
It is such nonsense. What was I saying? I said that the fastest crime, when I first came into power, I asked the heads of police, that what is, the crime figures. The crime that was rising the fastest was sex crime. Sex crime was not just rape, it was child abuse. Child abuse was really what really shocked me. And the disturbing thing was that barely 1% got reported. The families of the victims, whether they were girls or whether they were children who were being abused, were so embarrassed that they would not report it. So therefore, what I was saying was that law enforcement can then basically only deal with less than 1%. The rest the society has to deal with. And the society through awareness. And I never said veils, this was never said. I said the concept of parda. Concept of parda is avoid temptation in the society. So, and I went further. We don't have discos here, we don't have nightclubs. You don't have any, like in Western societies, you don't have any places where boy meets girl. So it is a completely different society, way of life here. So if you raise temptation in the society to the point, and all these young guys have nowhere to go, it has consequences in the society which were reflected in the crime chart. So one, you fight sex crime through law enforcement, but because the majority, and majority means 99% of sex crimes are not reported, and this is according to the police officers. So therefore, the society, public, schools, awareness, teachers, media, everyone must join in, because that's how we will sort of raise awareness against sex crimes. So the concept of, I used clearly, I know exactly what I said. I said the concept of parda. Parda is not just to, it's to reduce temptation in the society.
So this is what I'm trying to get, is the clarity, and I'm glad that you can explain this. What are the forms of temptation that need to be curtailed to stop the rise of rape?
For one, and remember, rape is less.
Okay, sexual violence. What are the forms of temptation?
So child abuse is much more than rape.
Okay.
So these were the shocking things. So, for instance, one thing we also discovered, because then we did a bit of research on mobile phones.
Right.
Children have mobile phones. Material available on mobile phones. Children have never been, they've never seen such material in human history. It's never happened before. Children have never had this exposure before. So when I said the whole society has to fight, starting from, how do we deal with this? And by the way, we are now trying to find out how to control content on the social media. So that's one, but at the moment it's free for all. And then, television plays, they should be educating people, about the sort of things that children are exposed to. And so when you mean the society, you mean all the various ways, starting from schools, everywhere. The society must fight sex crimes.
You also mentioned in that interview Bollywood and Hollywood. Do you believe that Bollywood and Hollywood films have contributed to this rise in sexual violence?
Absolutely. When I can only compare when I went to England as an 18-year-old. There were adults-only films. The content on films was completely different. And then we saw it changing throughout. What was taboo maybe in early 70s was acceptable in late 70s. So when on films the content gets X-rated and these become acceptable, clearly it has an effect on the society.
X-rated is sort of underground. I mean, you don't really believe the Hollywood films or mainstream Hollywood or Bollywood films are causing a rise in sex.
No. You see,
what kind of films?
Let me tell you, Hollywood, the way it works in the subcontinent, from Hollywood it goes to Bollywood, which is in India,
Okay.
which has completely changed again. What was the Indian film industry in the 70s and the 80s, gradually in the 90s, and what it is now, is completely changed. So the content is completely different. And it has an impact on the society. If anyone is telling me that this does not have an impact, you can just read, you can just see the divorce rates, you can see the sex crime. It has an effect both in India and Pakistan. So we then take the content from India, how the films take it. And so basically what I was saying was that there must be an alternative. You must show an alternative, our own way of life. There is another way of life. Because modernity is not just permissiveness. It's not modernity. You know, if we are thinking that, you know, if you just have more and more permissive content on television or on films, this is modern. It's not modern.
Again, like, I watch a lot of Hollywood films. I don't see anything that would inspire me to commit acts of...
But Jonathan, you live in a Western society.
I know.
You know, so you've grown up there. I'm talking about the impact it has on our society. We have seen the change here. You know, there's a massive change taking place. And every society must analyze itself. They must work out what are the impact it is having on different segments, and then take steps.
Do you think that what women wear has any effect? That that's part of this temptation?
Well, you know, if a woman is wearing very few clothes, it will have an impact on the men, unless they're robots. I mean, it's common sense.
Yes, but is it really going to provoke acts of sexual violence?
It depends which society you live in. If in a society people haven't seen that sort of thing, it will have an impact on them. If you grow up in a society like you, maybe it won't on you. So, I'm not talking... Jonathan, you must understand, this is this problem we face. This cultural imperialism, whatever is in our culture, must be acceptable to everyone else. It's not. Every culture is different. And therefore, when you introduce things in a culture, it has different impact there.
But forgive me, like, when you were a cricket star, you were seen as a playboy, you know, there were photos of you with your shirts off in your bedroom. Like, it's a bit rich.
Jonathan, this is not about me. It's about my
society. Like, don't you feel like it's a bit rich for you to say this?
Jonathan, listen, it's about my society. My priority is how my society behaves, what reactions are caused in my society. So when I see sex crime going through the roof, it's not just me. We bring people, sit down and we discuss it from different sectors of the society. We sit down, we discuss how we're going to tackle this. We have a problem. Now, are you going to tell me that I'm going to sit back and say, okay, we have this rising sex crime, but because of Australia it doesn't have any impact, so we should do nothing about it. It is having an impact in my society. We have to do something about it. It doesn't mean what Imran Khan did 40 years or 50 years ago, so it's hypocrisy. This is absolute lunacy what you're talking about. It's absolute nonsense. We have a responsibility. I, as a Prime Minister, have a responsibility. When a sex crime takes place, when a child is abused, he's traumatized for life. We have to do something about it.